Machine of Death, a collection of stories about people who know they are going to die. Introduction to the prompt. The machine had been invented a few years ago, a machine that could tell, just from a sample of your blood, how you were going to die. It didn't give you the date, and it didn't give you specifics. It just spat out a sliver of paper upon which were printed in careful block letters the words drown, or cancer, or old age, or choked on a handful of popcorn. It let people know how they were going to die. The problem with the machine is that nobody really knew how it worked, which wouldn't have actually been that much of a problem if the machine worked as well as we wished it would. But the machine was frustratingly vague in its predictions, dark and seemingly delighting in the ambiguities of language. Old age, it had already turned out, could mean either dying of natural causes or being shot by a bedridden man in a botched home invasion. The machine captured the old world sense of irony in death. You can know how it's going to happen, but you'll still be surprised when it does. The realization that we could now know how we were going to die had changed the world. People became at once less fearful and more afraid. There's no reason not to go skydiving if you know your sliver of paper says buried alive. But the realization that these predictions seemed to revel in turnabout and surprise put a damper on things. It made the predictions more sinister. Yes, skydiving should be safe if you were going to be buried alive. But what if you landed in a gravel pit? What if you were buried alive, not in dirt, but in something else? And would being caught in a collapsing building count as being buried alive? But for every possibility the machine closed, it seemed to open several more with varying degrees of plausibility. By that time, of course, the machine had been reverse engineered and duplicated, its internal workings being rather simple to construct. And yes, we found out that its predictions weren't as straightforward as they seemed upon initial discovery at about the same time as everyone else did. We tested it before announcing it to the world, but testing took time. Too much, since we had to wait for people to actually die. After 4 years had gone by and 3 people died as the machine predicted, we shipped it out the door. There were now machines in every doctor's office and in booths at the mall. You could pay someone, or you could probably get it done for free, but the result was the same no matter what machine you went to. They were, at least, consistent. Short story number 1. Flaming Marshmallow. I am so freaking excited, I can hardly stand it. Tomorrow is my birthday. The birthday. The birthday everybody waits and waits for, and until you get there, you just hate all your old friends already that got theirs, and you're the only one without it. And sometimes you think, holy freaking F, I'm never gonna turn 16. But then you do. At first, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep. I turn off the lights, but after laying in the dark for half an hour, I turn it back on. I look at my calendar hanging on the wall above my bed. I reach out, lift it off its nail with one hand, and snuggle back under the covers, taking the calendar with me and running a finger over all the red X's marked over all the days leading up to this one. It's a little cold out, and the last thing in the universe I want to do is catch an effing cold the week of my birthday. So I snuggle down into the warmth of my flannel sheets even more. I know there are going to be parties this weekend, and I'm going to want to go. This is what I've been waiting for all these months. All these years, I guess. Though before my friends started getting theirs, it didn't seem like much of a big deal. We were all no-nos then. Tomorrow, I'm finally going to feel like I belong. Tomorrow, I'm going to find out how I die.
Carolyn, yo girl, wait up.
At the sound of my name, I turn around. It's Patrice. I can see her bounding up across the commons toward me. Her super long hair is braided today, and as she runs it whips around at the sides of her head like angry red snakes with ribbons tied to their tails. Hey, Patrice, I say, and clutch my books closer to my chest. I try to walk a little faster, thinking that maybe she'll get the hint. She doesn't.
Today's the big day, huh?
She says, and I nod. She turns her head away and bites her lip.
Lucky.
She says. I shrug, speed up even more. It's not my problem that she's one of the smartest kids in our class, and they moved her up a grade like 4 years ago. It's not my fault she's going to be a no-no for the whole nother year. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see Brad Binder. He is so effing cool. A burner, they say. That's hot, I think, and I laugh to myself.
What's so funny?
Asked Patrice. We're at my locker, so I balance my book on my knee with one hand while I fumble my combo lock with the other. I pretend I didn't hear, but she sees me flicking sly glances in Brad Binder's direction.
Not him.
She says, rolling her eyes.
You can't be serious.
I try to shut her up. I wish I had some kind of freaking superpower or something. I wish I could just concentrate really hard and make her go away. Brad Binder pulls his letter jacket out of his locker, which is so close to mine, 3 other girls have asked to trade lockers with me. He shrugs his perfect, so effing perfect, shoulders into his jacket and takes out just a notebook with a pencil shoved in its rings. No computer, no books, no nothing. God, that's so effing cool, just like a burner. As Brad walks away, Patrice fixes me with one of those stares of hers.
He's not that great, you know. I heard he kisses like a dead lizard.
I guess you'd know, I almost say, but I stop myself. I don't want to stoop to her level, be so childish. I'm 16 today, and after school, my dad's taking me to the mall to get that slip of paper, and then I'll know where I really belong. So I shrug again instead and let it slide off me like egg off Teflon. He's a burner, I say. They're pretty cool. Patrice snorts.
You know what his slip said? Blaming Marshmallow. It doesn't sound like a real burn or cause of death to me, no matter what he says. You should probably be hanging out with the chokers instead. You wouldn't think he was so tough then.
I've had enough of Patrice. You wouldn't understand, I tell her and walk away towards geometry class. Maybe Cindy Marshall would be nice to me today, it being so close to me getting my C of D slip. Maybe I'll end up being a crasher like her. If only. I'm almost late getting to class. Mrs. Tharple looks at me extra sour, but I don't give a flying F. I slide into my seat right as the bell rings, and I catch Cindy Marshall's eye. I smile.
Don't even look at me, you no-no,
she says to me, low under her breath as Mrs. Tharple starts handing out her pop quiz. The other 2 girls behind her snicker, and I can feel their eyes darting against my skin, sharp like the teeth of weasels. It's my birthday, I say. She turns in her seat and looks at me full on. I try to understand the look in her eyes, but I can't. I feel like it's something really obvious, like she's trying to tell me something so obvious. I should already know it. I feel really stupid. Mrs. Tharple walks between us, places our blank quizzes face up on the desk in front of us, glides on by to the next row and toward the front of the room again. I look down at my geometry quiz, try to concentrate, try to ignore the heat in my cheeks and the tips of my ears and on the back of my neck.
Hey, you!
Hisses Cindy Marshall. I look up.
So did you get your slip yet?
I shake my head. For school, I tell her. She narrows her eyes. I can sense the other girls, crashers both, also watching me, but I play it cool, I hope. She nods.
If you get your C of D and it's crash, anything, cane, bite, car, hop freaking air balloon, whatever, you come talk to me again tomorrow.
I have to bite the inside of my cheeks to keep from smiling. I try to look like this isn't the best offer I've gotten all morning. I try to look tough. I want to be crasher material. I really do. Tomorrow, I say, and she nods again once. Not one of those girls acknowledges my existence the entire rest of the class, but I don't care. Everything will be different tomorrow. Tomorrow, my life can begin. Lunch isn't what I'd hoped for. I've spent all this time counting down to my birthday, thinking this is the day everything changes, but it isn't. I don't feel like a no-no anymore, even though technically I still don't actually know. I'm under 18, so I have to have my parent or legal guardian with me to get my slip. If I could have, I would have ditched lunch today, gone to the mall, gotten the whole thing over with. Instead, I have to wait for my dad to get off work. So unfair. So even if I get my slip tonight, nobody but me is going to know my cause of death until tomorrow. Well, my parents will know. And my little brother, I guess, and I'm sure I could call Patrice and tell her, but why? After tomorrow, I'll have new friends to hang out with. But for today, I'm still stuck in No-Nosville. I grab my tray and slide into the bench at the end of the table. Patrice waves me down further toward her end, but I pretend I don't see her. I line up my 8 extra packets of mustard and start tearing the corners off one by one, slowly squeezing out the sharp yellow and gooping it all over the top of my synthesized proteins and pressed vegetable shapes. Covertly, I scan the room, wondering, fantasizing about where I might be allowed to sit tomorrow. Who is going to welcome me with open arms? It all depends on my C of D. A ruckus is going on over in the corner. Of course, it's the burner kids, cracking each other up, starting a food fight. The burners, the drowners, the crashers, the live wires, and the fallers, all the violent accidentals, they sit in mingled clumps along the 2 tables in the corner. That's the coolest corner, and I'm pretty sure I'll get to sit there tomorrow. Or at least close. The next tables out wouldn't be so bad. You've got the medheads and the sharpies and the bullets, mostly malpractice and murder, right? Though some kids sneak in there who should probably be with the suicides. I can see those from here, all dressed in black and with pale faces. They look like a bunch of crows pecking at their food. Just please don't let me be at one of the last 2 tables. Sickness and old age, ugh. They look boring even eating their lunch. That would be my COD if I was forced to sit at that table. Bored to death.
Happy birthday, Coon.
I'm so startled I squeeze a mustard packet too hard and it squirts all down the front of my dress. I start to dab it with a napkin, but I'm just turning bitter yellow clumps into bitter yellow smears.
I'm so sorry, Carolyn.
I look up into Jamie's face. We used to be friends a long, long time ago. He lives just down the street, and we used to ride bikes together every single day. I can still taste the sun and summer dust on my tongue just looking at him. We stopped hanging out when his parents joined the anti-MOD league. Sometimes on his way home from school, I see his mom standing out in front of the mall with her placard or her sandwich board. Lives are for the living, say her signs some days. Others, people against machines of death. Or even, don't ask, don't know. You have a choice. Jamie's almost 18, and he's still a no-no. I'd just die if that were me. I would just die. It's okay, Jamie, I tell him. Don't worry about it. He has a couple of napkins in his hands, and he's dipping them in his water, holding them out to me. He started to dab one on my breast, but figured out in time it probably wasn't such a good idea. I try to stifle a sudden memory of me and him kissing behind the convenience store dumpster. I was probably 12 or 13, and he was 14 or so, right before his parents joined the league. I remember he tasted like strawberries. I hope Jamie doesn't see my ears and neck turn red. He's one of the few people who knows me too well for me to hide it.
Your mom picking you up after school?
He asks. I keep dabbing, shaking my head. My dad. He nods. He's watching the motions of my hands as I rub the damp napkin on my lap, on the fabric stretched across my ribs, but he's not really seeing me.
I'm sorry,
he says again, and I don't think he's talking about mustard. By the time Dad picks me up, I'm mentally exhausted. He kisses the top of my head when I get into the car.
Hey, Kit. Happy special day.
Thanks. Dad's just sitting there with a lopsided smile on his face.
Do you want to go get ice cream or something?
He says.
You want pizza? A movie?
How can he be so freaking clueless? I want to tell him what a moron he's being. But when I look at him, something feels like it slips sideways in my stomach. For the first time, I'm looking at the 40-something man with the glasses and the stubbled cheeks and the ugly sweater, and I don't see my dad. I mean, yeah, of course, I see my dad. The middle-aged, med-head C of D, accidental overdose, with the overexpensive house and the boring job and the 2 kids and last year's car bought cheap with high miles from a rental fleet. But I also see a guy. I see a guy who loves me so much he can't even put it into words. It never occurred to me that this might be a big deal for him, the day I get my slip. He looks tired, I think, more tired than usual. I reach out and put my hand on his where it's resting on the steering wheel. Sure, Dad, I say, whatever you want. He covers my hand with his other one, so it's kind of like a hand sandwich. Mine fingers and knuckles pressed between 2 layers of his. His eyes look a little bright for a second. But I decide it's only my imagination as he places my hand back in my own lap and starts the car and pulls out from the curb. I watch the school get smaller and smaller in the side mirror as we drive away. I finish off the last of my ice cream cone, and so does Dad. We wipe our sticky fingers on the wet wipes and throw those away, and I get up from the food court table and gather all my bags as we stand. Dad's bought me a new pair of shoes, 2 new books, and a hat he says I look great in, but which I know I'll never ever wear again in a million billion. All I'm missing is the partridge in a pear tree.
So what next, birthday girl? Need some new gloves? Music? You used to love the music store.
He's walking over to the mall directory, studying the list of stores. I walk up to him, set down my bags of books and shoes, and touch his arm. Dad, I say. It's time. He doesn't look at me right away. He takes off his glasses and starts to clean them on the edge of his sweater. I can see he's just making them all linty and smeary, so I take them from him and clean them on the inside hem of my dress instead. When I hand them back, they're considerably cleaner, and I pick up my bags and start walking in the direction of the slip kiosk. I don't have to look at the location on the mall directory. I know exactly where it is. There's not a 15-year-old in the country who doesn't know the location of the nearest machine. I know its hours of operation. Regular mall open hours, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. I know how much it costs, $19.95 plus tax. I even know the brand, Death-O-Mat by Digco. We give the same results, for less. The only thing I don't know is what's going to be on that strip of paper when it scrolls out of the slot. It's getting kind of late and the mall's going to close soon. Most of the stores are empty. It's a school night, so nobody my age is around. It's mostly tired-looking shop clerks with achy feet and straggly-haired moms pushing heavy strollers. The machine kiosk is on a darkish corner over by the restrooms. The janitor has the door propped open to the ladies, and even though I kind of have to go, I'm not about to brave the janitor and his stinky mop. Besides, I don't want to put this off anymore. I need to know. Dad pauses when we get to the machine. He fumbles with his wallet, pulls out his identity and credit cards, and he clears his throat but doesn't say anything. Doesn't even look at me. I thought Dad's hand shook a little when we slid the cards into their proper slots and keyed in his and my social security number and other information. But I'm sure I was just imagining things. It was probably just my brain buzzing. That's what it feels like inside my head right now. Like all the curves and loops and folds in my brain are buzzing with tiny bees, or maybe electric currents. I guess brains are, after all, though, filled with electric currents, that is, not tiny bees. The machine's green lights come on, and an arrow points to the small, shiny, self-cleaning divot in the otherwise dull metal. I set my bags down at my feet, slowly reaching one finger toward the indentation.
Hero?
I jump, look into Dad's face. He pushes his glasses back on the bridge of his nose, fumbles it a little, blinks.
For an extra $5, it could tell you your blood type, your glucose levels, and whether or not you're pregnant.
He points to the list printed on the machine's face. Then he frowns, distracted.
Hey, there's no way you might be pregnant, is there?
I close the tiny distance between us and wrap my arms around his waist. He hugs me back, and for a second, as I breathe in the warm, fuggy-sweathered dadness of him, I feel like the most precious and important thing in the universe. Without letting go of Dad or giving him any warning, I reach behind him and jab my finger into the shiny divot. Dad flinches, and I press my face closer to his chest. A tiny slicing pain flits across my finger, the numbness as the machine sprays its analgesic and disinfectant. I pull back from Dad, and he clears his throat and lets me go. The machine spits out Dad's 2 cards from their slot, and my slip scrolls out from the single slot below. Dad and I both reach for it, but when I freeze, he pulls back. I've got to do this, and he knows it. He plucks his plastic from the machine and slides the cards into his wallet while I uncurl my slip and read. I read it 3 times. 4 times. I'm on my 5th when Dad, unable to contain himself, gently tugs the paper from my stiff fingers and reads aloud.
Death by millennium space entropy?
He says. But Dad wraps both arms around me and swings me up into the air like he hasn't done since I was a very, very little girl. I keep my arms stiff but let my legs and body go limp, and Dad twirls me in a circle, laughing, joyous. He finally sets me down, and I have to reach out a hand to steady myself against the edge of the machine. I'm a little dizzy and confused.
Millennium space entropy?
says Dad, shaking his head, unrolling the slip and reading it again.
That's amazing, Carolyn. It's fantastic. You'll be nearly 1,000 years old by the next millennium. Maybe you'll live to be 1,000. But just think, medical breakthroughs all the time, vastly expanded lifespans. It could happen, sweetheart. Really happen.
Dad, grinning, crushes me to his chest again, and I can hear the rumble of happiness somewhere deep inside.
Just want you to have a long and happy life, Carolyn. A very long and happy life.
But Dad, I say into the nubby wool of his sweater, where will I sit at lunch tomorrow?
Subscribe for next chapter.
Thank you for watching short story number 1, Flaming Marshmallow. No one gets s'mored, unfortunately, but, there's 33 other short stories, so maybe in the future. Question to be answered down below. If you were 16 and in this corner of the world able to find out your cause of death, are you dragging your dad, mom, guardian down to the mall and hoping to sit with the flamers or the burners or unfortunately the suicides? Like, are you going to feed into it?
I would.
You wouldn't? You really think that you would?
No, I would. I would fake ID that shit and do it younger.
Oh, you'd want to know as soon as possible?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because it tells you what to invest your skill set in. Because listen, as a Buddhist,
it doesn't though. That's the haha of the entire.
No, but
book,
it kind of does. But it kind of does because again, as a Buddhist, everybody should know and fully understand that they're gonna die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So knowing how doesn't change the aspect of if or when. And I guess I'll save this for the next chapter. But there's in this world, in this universe, people react to it like they can do something about it, right? And I don't think that's the point. Listen, if I don't know what's a good example? The space entropy is a great example. If you know you're going to die because of some long space voyage,
I don't
or
think
whatever,
that's necessarily,
or you're going to be living for a long time or something, you can, I don't know, you'd be like, all right, I should for sure buy stocks, right? Because if you find out some shit that you're going to die at a young age,
the point,
it's oh, maybe I shouldn't care too much about a college fund and I should become a degenerate gambler or something because I'm going to die in 5 years.
This short story is to be oh, while this doesn't seem important now because she's in high school and everything is the social hierarchy has been built upon the death predictions. I don't think it's meant to be this idea about she will live for over 1,000 years, so she has time to buy Bitcoin. I don't think that was the point. I think it was just to have something so undefinable that haha, bitch, you're gonna continue to be in a social limbo, and because it doesn't matter, the social cliques and shit doesn't matter, and now you have a death prediction that you can't define. But again, ironically, no one can. Or maybe you're right, be a Buddhist and invest in Bitcoin. Yeah. So short story number 1, which honestly has got to be a huge honor to Camille Alexa. She wrote Flaming Marshmallow, which I gotta say, she is not the only one who wrote a short story in this book that the title completely is misleading. Okay, so let's back up. From what I understand, most of these submissions were not necessarily done by authors, right? These are readers of dinosaur comics by Ryan North. That's how this came about. Ryan North was creating dinosaur comics, so it's a web comic, and within that comic, the premise of Machine of Death was born, and then they asked for submissions from it. So it can be a fair assumption that a lot of these are just readers, I'm assuming. Anyway, Place of Honor. I think the first short story of an anthology like this has to kind of hit hard in some lane in order to convince someone to continue reading or listening to the short stories. Generally speaking, I was a big fan of Flaming Marshmallow. Like, yeah, the word that she gets from the Machine of Death is a little goofy, but it was meant to be goofy. I don't know. You're 16 and your entire social hierarchy is built on how everyone is going to die. I guess, there's goofier cliques, I guess.
Well, yeah, it seems that it's a larger concept than like fate because everybody seems to be like doing exactly what the machine is saying, based on what the machine is saying, and the people who choose not to know still end up doing it. So it's like fate seems to be more of like a constant thing in this universe, and then also the ending answer, the crazy word entropy and everything in space.
Space millennium entropy.
Yeah, so 1,000 years of space travel leading to entropy is like an interesting concept. Basically, just shows you the limits of like the world that we're in, and how wacky it's probably going to get in the other chapters.
Yeah, but also how futile the answer is anyway. Like, that's kind of the joke of this entire anthology, right? That no matter what word you get, you don't really know what it means, and that's pretty enjoyable. I've been liking that. I saw some people complaining online, like the reviews on Goodreads, being upset that the deaths weren't really playing out, but that wasn't the point. The point is people processing this information on how they're going to die.
I think people's brains immediately go like Final Destination.
Oh, 100%.
So they're like, oh, all these people are going to get wrecked, and I'm kind of leaning into the assumption that most people would make by the way that I kind of edited the intro together visually, is because the creepy music, because I kind of wanted to reinforce what you would kind of expect in a book like this, just so the first story kind of jerks you out of it and you're like, whoa, this is not what I expected. But it still isn't like, it doesn't mean it's bad or anything. It just kind of shows you that this is not necessarily the point of the game or the world. Because I'm pretty sure there's a board game based on this.
You told me there was a board game.
I saw videos
haven't
about
looked
it and
up
stuff.
if there's a board game.
I don't know if it was like a gag or something, or I'm sure if we looked into it deeper, we could maybe find it. Yeah, so if you guys like the project that we're working on with the visuals, and like the audio production, the little bits of sounds and stuff like that, if you like all that packaged out, make sure to share this around, comment, like.
But it's been super enjoyable. It's something that, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we've now read 5 chapters and they're all so different, as they should be. But it's also refreshing to know that, as we continue on, hopefully they are continued to be varied and engaging. So, more to come.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody.
Subscribe for next chapter.